Broadcasting from the heart of the Colorado Rockies, it's 4th and 99 with your hosts, David Slade, Keith Brookman, and Matt Stappiero. Now let's talk football here on 4th and 99.
Hey everybody, it's 4th and 99 with your host Matt Stappiero. With me as always, I have David Slade and I got Keith Brookman, and we're here to break down the Broncos win, baby. How you guys doing after that win? I know the fan base is happy. I know those fans in Dallas were happy, and I know you already said I'm happy. I'm about to double down on it again. I'm just stoked to talk some Broncos today, guys. What about you, Dave? What's your first thoughts, guys?
I didn't expect this. I mean, I'm elated. Last week we won, but it just didn't feel right last week when we were in here, But tonight, I mean, just the way it went down today, it was just amazing. So elated about everything and the way it happened. So got a lot of neat stuff to break down today or tonight.
I tell you what, for me, it's one of those days that you get to walk in on Monday, got your jersey on, chest is all pumped out. Man, there ain't days like this as a Broncos fan. Pound the table. We got to win, and you can celebrate, baby. Go out there, have some fun on Monday.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm going to be wearing my Broncos jersey, my Bronco hat. Who knows? Maybe I'm going to rock the Broncos pajama pants tomorrow because you know why? I'm going to be at home tomorrow. I don't get to go and share the glory with everybody else. But it's nothing nonetheless, man. None of us thought this. We have some crody. I think we might even have to throw out a couple apologies today. We were doubting Teddy Bridgewater. We were doubting this defense. What was this?
We were doubting Calvin Anderson. I mean,
the list goes on.
We were doubting everybody.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we thrown Pat Shurmur under the bus? And finally, Pat, you have given us something that we can come on this show and be proud of as you as our offensive coordinator. First one.
One that we haven't thrown underneath the bus, but we should have kind of looked at a little bit. How about Mike Munchak? Man, that offensive line was looking pretty ratty-tatty in the weeks past. And I'll tell you what, against a Dallas defense, they did not look anything but excellent. Didn't even matter if they had injuries. It was amazing.
No. I mean,
go ahead, Dave.
This defense of Dallas has just been dominating people during their 6-game winning streak. I mean, we just went out there and dispatched them with like our JV guys.
It was a fantastic. I mean, could you? I put up someplace on my notes. I put up next man plus because there's one thing to just say, hey, we got a next man up, and the guy goes out there and he played pretty. No, this was not missing a beat, but going out there and saying, don't worry, we got this, and just full throttle. And it was an amazing step up game by so many people, players and coaches.
Oh, yeah. And with that said, there was that comment that flashed up real quick that said Teddy Bridgewater and Fangio for more years. Okay, whoa, pump the brakes a little bit. We can't get too excited now. But, let's jump on this. Let's hit the negatives first, because there was a couple negatives in the game. And it wasn't anything in terms of playing. We did see some nasty injuries happen today. Graham Glasgow, something to do with the lower leg. I'm hearing it's ankle, hearing it's a possibility that it could be fractured. He left in a blue air cast. According to Kliss and a couple other Denver sources. We're waiting on confirmation to see if it is actually a fracture or broken or if it's a sprain. But it did not look good. It was rumored that he was in agonizing pain and while he was leaving the field through multiple Twitter sources. The other one, Bobby Massey, got rolled up on by Calvin Anderson. So two really, really big injuries to that offensive line. We know with big guys, you never really know when it's a lower extremity. We've seen Juwan James go out for like his whole career with it, and we live those days. Hopefully we don't see that now. With Massey being here, as long of a career as he's had, as long as Graham's had, man, those guys eke and ooze toughness. So I'm confident, if they can play, they're going to come back. If it is a fracture for Glasgow, we just got to hope for a speedy recovery. It may be a season ender if it is a fracture. So
I'll tell you what, though, and if it is, and hopefully it's not, I mean, but Miners came in and that guy played unbelievably. So he really showed some growth over where he was earlier in the year when he struggled at times. He came in and played a great game.
Oh, it was fantastic. You know, we talk about Natani Moody all the time. I pound the table for Natani Moody. The dude's a mauler. He was unfortunately on the COVID list today. Quinn Miners came in and put you on notice. So they're going to have a nice little battle this week in practice to see who kind of gets to go out there at right guard if Glasgow cannot come back. On the same hand, though, Lloyd Cushenberry, man, Miners can play center. You know, this guy's interchangeable. So he's looking like he may be coming for someone's, starting gig. I was a doubter on the belly himself, but he came in, man. Keith, I'm gonna dial in a different injury for you though, because we got a little bit of a scare when Tim Patrick went down grabbing his leg. They said it's cramps. We haven't heard anything else. Fingers crossed that it's cramps. But the one that we've got no news on so far. Patrick Surtain, the second, little PS2 over there. We don't know. It was a knee injury. Dave, you put out on Twitter that he left the field. He hobbled off the field, looked like he was in pain. What kind of loss would that be right now, Keith, if he can't come and play next week?
Obviously you don't want a first-round pick to go down. That's the worst thing you can possibly imagine, right? So the one thing that, it's tough not to get caught up in the hype, right? We talked about the Teddy Bridgewater and Fangio for 4 more years. But when we saw Fuller out there, when we saw Darby out there, we saw K-Jack coming up, we saw Simmons coming up. It was just a plethora of guys that were plugging in. Now, if we can continue that type of success, it might be a sustainable defense. But, man, you need to have Patrick Surtain back out there. We're already down Callahan, and Surtain would be a miss. There's no doubt about it. So hopefully they can just play like they played today. It was amazing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Real quick, we got so excited by that welcome. We dove right into the show and blew right by our sponsor. Really quick. I want to just thank. This show will be brought to you today by Willow Seasonings and Blends, putting a little spice in your life. All right, real quick, we got that out of the way. You got to pay the bills. Anyways, I want to pat myself on the back a little bit. We've been, Dave and I, you and I had a conversation a couple weeks ago, and it kind of came back to bit me in the behind. And because I said if the Broncos can control the time of possession and control field position, they wouldn't lose another game. Well, I was wrong then, but it's came back to prove that it's the formula to the Broncos' success. The other thing that we talked about is they got to pound the rock. Javonte Williams, 17 carries. Melvin Gordon, 21 carries. We're hitting almost 40 carries, and it showed that what this team needs to do is run the ball. Does Pat Shurmur learn from this next week as Philadelphia comes here to Denver?
I think he has to. Denver has to go out next week, and as great as this win was, we have to go out next week and we have to repeat it. We can't go out and have another sloppy win like we did against the Washington football team last week. We need to come out and prove that, hey, this is the way this team is going to be moving forward. 41 total rushes today for 190 yards. We didn't even think that. Matt, you asked me the question. You asked if I thought Javonte Williams could go 100 yards, and I said, nah, probably not, more like 75. But I did say if he can get to the second level clean, watch out, he will get his 100 yards. And guess what? Our offensive line did an amazing job and got these guys, to the next level, both him and Gordon, and just allowed them to, get going and get through the line without getting banged up.
And I saw a way that they did it a little bit different too this week, right? I've seen a lot of slide blocking in the weeks past, where we're sliding left, we're sliding right, find your alley, make your cut. Not this week. We had a lot of zone blocking scheme. We had guys doubling up on one defensive lineman, and then he's springing off. One of the guys is springing off, getting to that second level, and getting that what could be like a 3-4 yard gain is all of a sudden became a 10-yard gain. 12-yard gain, 15-yard gain. The amount of times we took off both Gordon and Williams and got first downs on first down with a run, I was just a completely different running game. And that's one thing I will say. We don't need a repeat. We need to game plan like we game plan for Dallas. We game plan for Dallas. We didn't go out there with a generic playbook. I think we went out there with an idea and a mindset of what we wanted to do for that team. Next week is a completely different team. Make sure you're game planning for that team.
Yeah, but at the same time, though, Philadelphia is a team that's been weaker against the run. They've, as great as Fletcher Cox is, he's a one-man band. Okay, I mean, that the defensive line, they overpay for defensive tackles, and it never really works out. They got Barnett, but that's more for like that edge pressure. If they can get those pull blocks that you're highlighting, these where Dalton Reisner, Quinn Miners, Graham Glasgow pull a nasty block on a pull block, opening that hole. Rather than that running back finding the hole, he followed that hog molly straight in, and it worked out great. If they can negate Fletcher Cox, if they're double teaming him, those run lanes will be open next week. Philadelphia doesn't even have the second level that Dallas had with Leighton Vander Esch and Micah Parsons. Both guys are almost, Leighton Vander Esch is maybe not an all-pro, but he's a really great player. Micah Parsons, man, he's making a case for, defensive player of the game. As much as this is all about Broncos, I mean, he did get 2.5 sacks on us coming up just straight up the A-gap. Bam. Blowing right through Melvin Gordon once, blowing right through Cushenberry another time. He almost had 3. So definitely, next week, Philadelphia doesn't got that strong of a linebacking core. Their safeties are probably about close to the same level as Dallas, but
I'll agree with you, Matt. But the one thing I just want to point out is I just don't want us to come back with the exact same playbook that they already see on tape from Dallas and say, boy, look what they did in Dallas. Let's go ahead and look at that tape. Let's game plan around that tape. And then us come back out with the exact same plays, the exact same motions, the exact same design, and then get, counteracted in what should be a great game plan heading into a Philadelphia game. So.
Oh yeah, of course. I totally agree with what you're saying. But at the same time, what they did today is they instilled not necessarily fear, but next week Philadelphia is going to be crouching that line. As soon as they start crouching that line, we're going to see what happened. Tim Patrick, what do we call in the pregame? 10, 15 in. We're going to see slants. We're going to see the mid, post in the middle of the field. We're going to see all of that come through. We're going to be able to hit those big passes early. If they're fearful of that run, Denver is giving themselves a weapon that we've been calling for all season. It's in the strength of this team. As long as they can instill that there's that concern that Javonte Williams, we see how angry of a runner he is. Melvin Gordon has the finesse to get through, and then that quick speed. We've seen him break a beautiful run earlier this season. It's going to cause these guys to come up early. And what we've seen with we were down Teddy Bridgewater all day. We're like, oh, we don't know if he can make the big throws. We don't know if he can hit outside the numbers. I go back to 3 passes. That beautiful pass to Jerry. He had 2 beautiful passes to Jerry Jeudy. Another beautiful one on the outside to Tim Patrick. And then we talk about that touchdown pass on a line. He's shown that when he's feeling good and he's healthy, the dude's not missing a throw. He's not missing a throw if it's not overdone. It was calculated, and the run game opened up the passing for him perfectly today. It's that efficiency we need. And I don't know. Philadelphia's going to have a tough week of game planning. That's all I know.
And I agree. And I think Shermer really needs to learn off of this. This needs to be our identity going forward. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater's not the guy that's going to come out here 40 times a game, sling the rock around, and beat you. So we need to set up. I mean, we went 41 running plays and 28 passing plays. I mean, that's the kind of balance or advantage we need in the running game to keep Teddy on schedule. And if we can do that and we can establish the running game, this team has chances to do things.
I noticed Victor chimed in just a little bit ago, and thank you, Victor, for going ahead and getting your name up there. But one thing I just want to say, he said that, yeah, exactly. Shermer has no excuses going forward. And I agree. Exactly what Dave said. This is the game plan that shows that what he's capable of doing. And I don't think that's just for Shermer. It's for Bridgewater. It's for everybody who played on that field today. I think they got a taste of exactly what they're capable of, and hopefully they keep that going. So
I said this last week, and I said it to be funny. I said Vic Fangio got the talking to from George Payton after that beautiful press conference with all the GM talking it that we thought it was GM talk. Oh, does this team? I think we'll highlight this press conference for the rest of the season. But I said after Vic probably got that panic play sheet that we talk about, the panic sheet, rolled it up and smacked him around a couple of times last week. I said it, and the game plan looked a little different last week, and it's looked even better this week. I think Pat Shurmur knows he's coaching for his job. He knows that he can't keep shoving square pegs into round holes. It's not working, and he's got to play to these players' strengths. If he shows me this next week, maybe we could say he's been a changed man. But I am still hesitant. I feel that he's going to want to push the pass down if Denver falls behind. But the thing about it is he's got to remember 7 points is still, within reach. We can't go to panic right away. Control the clock. You trust your backs. And as long as there's no turnovers, this team's dangerous. And I told you guys at the beginning of the season, if they can keep that formula, they will continue to be dangerous. Will they use it against 3-week teams? 4-week teams, if you can consider Washington weak. I think they're mediocre. But they came in and they smacked the 6-1 Cowboys in the mouth with that same game plan. We doubted their physicality for weeks. This team showed us they have a revitalized energy, and they're ready to play football.
And I agree. I mean, I agree they are. They came out. The only area that I would say that we really need to focus on and try to clean up is special teams. Special teams is sort of a disaster. I mean, the opening kickoff returned out, almost to midfield, maybe a little over midfield. So you have that.
Past midfield.
Yeah, past midfield. You have a missed extra point. You have a missed field goal. Of course, the field goal is 53-yarder, but, McManus usually makes those things. And then you had the block punt. And that sort of game changed right there is when that punt was blocked, and then the Dallas guy touched it beyond the line of scrimmage, and I can't remember who recovered it for the Broncos, but that was a heads-up play.
Jonas Griffith.
That was a heads-up play by him to get that ball, So, that really changed because Dallas was ready to take over momentum of the game right there, and I think that right there, changed it, swung that momentum right back to Denver, and Denver took it down and scored, put some points on the board. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that was a heads up play by special teams, like you said, But at the end of the day, if we're complaining about special teams versus all the other crud that we've been complaining about, man, it feels good to just have to worry about Tom McMahon and his special teams again. That's a weight off my shoulders this week. Unfortunately, Tom McMahon's had to be the MVP for the last couple of weeks.
Well, and the bad thing is. Special teams blunders can cost you in a close game, so you need to clean them up.
100%.
Ask Bradley Anae, is that his name?
Anae,
that's why he's no longer with the Dallas Cowboys, is because of a special teams blunder. So they can cost you in close games, so you need to clean them up because when we get into these division games, they may be a lot closer, and we're gonna need to play clean games.
Yeah.
Really quick, I when I got on this, when I figured I was going to be jumping on here, I figured I'd have to be going back over the keys of my game and maybe give some cue cards for Peyton. But just to remind you guys, we had a few. We had the run game, check. We had clock management, time of possession, 41 minutes 12 seconds to 18:48, and we had sustained drives. I tell you what, it was. I can't believe the game plan that they put together offensively. I know that we had Victor jumping in about Jonathan Cooper and some of the defense, but I just had to point that out. That was an amazing to see that once again, managing the clock against a team that's supposed to be one of the best defenses in the league. The amount of times that I saw guys going for the extra effort, it wasn't just Javonte Williams today. It was everybody. I saw guys tackled up, jumping for that extra yard and a half, making sure they're lunging forward. Teddy Bridgewater ducking the guy that's jumping over the top of the pile at the goal line, making sure that he keeps his legs churning, lunging that ball over the goal line. That was key. It was just time and time again. These guys made sure that they got the first down. They were given every effort to get there. It was a complete game changer, and that's how they maintain that time of possession. It was I'm just blown away, guys. I'm blown away by this game.
Yeah, we're not off it.
We've been wanting and yelling and screaming about, saying this is what they want to do, what they need to do, what we want them to do, and it all came together on the screen this afternoon. It was phenomenal.
And Matt and I figured it out during the game. We think that Teddy Bridgewater and Pat Shurmur listened to the 4th and 99 pregame show. And I think Teddy went in and said, hey, if these guys at 4th and 99 got it, why can't you get it, Pat? And that's how it went down.
Hey, I called out Teddy Bridgewater in my my monologue there, my one piece and who needs to step up. Maybe fingers crossed, maybe they are listening. And like you said, maybe if we can get it, Pat Shurmur should get it. But man, Teddy Bridgewater put on a great game. The ones that we talked about in keys of the game that we just missed a little bit. Efficiency and efficiency on third down and keeping it third and short. We were beautiful. We were getting every third down almost. It seemed like we were in third and short. A couple of the first drives stalled out on third and long. But even on some of the third and long drives, Tim Patrick was a freaking beast today in the middle of the field. He sustained several first downs for us on those third downs. He continues to shine through. We know Courtland Sutton is supposed to be the number one receiver on this team, but Tim Patrick continues to make a case to be that he can be at number one. How much more does Tim Patrick have to prove before he could be considered a top 15 receiver? The dude hardly ever takes a time off, fights for extra yards. He wasn't even open on two of his routes. He just continued with Teddy Bridgewater, and Bridgewater was able to find him through chaos. The announcer said at Breast, you started your route open, you remain open. And we've seen him get that, one catch about 7 yards down the field, take it for 15 more yards on third down. It was fantastic. Tim Patrick is definitely, I think, the most underrated player on this roster. And he's in a contract year. He's playing like it, man. Because at this rate, I don't know if Denver would be able to retain Sutton and Patrick. And they may have a tough decision to make. He's making a case for maybe getting that money over Sutton if he continues to be this consistent. Yeah, man, it's so hard. I want to look for a negative today, but I can't find one. I think the only negative we have today may be the injuries. I mean, I know it for sure as heck. I didn't think we were going to come in and smack Dallas 30-0 for majority of the game. Anybody out there who thinks that who said this before the game, I'd love to meet you because I think you got some kind of psychic power or something. Because I need to get to know you, man. Because I got a couple of bets I got on a couple of UFC fights in a couple of weeks. I could use your opinion on.
Well, and the thing is, I mean, people who didn't see this game and they just see the score, that score doesn't even tell the picture. I mean, this was total domination for 54 minutes of the game, and then Dallas comes back and gets a couple scores in garbage time, But I mean, I haven't seen a game like this since that Houston game in 2019.
Yeah,
Locke's rookie season, and that's the last time. But I'm gonna also say this too. This today, and I said this in one of our chats. This just needs to put an end to the quarterback controversy. Unless Teddy goes out there and gets hurt or just something crazy just happens. I mean, this is Teddy's team now, and I think the team is responding to him. And, we just need to let it be what it is now. And let's ride Teddy and let's see what Teddy can do for us.
Oh, absolutely. Me being the lock flogger, we haven't had to mention that in a while, but I was even leading up to this week, I was having the concerns that you heard it in our pregame segment. I was going to have a yes or no question. If Teddy Bridgewater has a similar performance to last week, were we going to have to see a potential quarterback switch at halftime? Is it worth getting that look at Drew Lock? Well, Teddy Bridgewater, fueled the fire this week. That controversy is done. I think you hit the nail on the head, Dave. It's done. He came out. He performed well. He showed us what he's capable of, protecting the ball and moving it when necessary. Is he a calculated quarterback? Yes. Does it take specific game planning? Yes. But what we've seen is run the ball, and he's efficient in play action. Pat Shurmur looked at what happened in New Orleans. Maybe after New Orleans did all this inquiry and pounding the table to get him back, Pat Shurmur went back and looked at what Teddy was doing in New Orleans and said, you know what? This is working. We got dynamic running backs. Are they Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara? No. But, they're Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, and they're hell of a great running backs. Let's utilize it. And what we've seen what Teddy Bridgewater can do, if this formula stays, Drew Lock's never going to start in a Broncos uniform again unless Teddy goes down. That's it. We closed the book. The Drew Lock book has been closed, guys. It's done. That's just where I'm at.
I agree. If he continues to play this way, but that really has to do a lot with what we did up front, right? finally we saw some protection for Teddy Bridgewater. He took a few bad hits, maybe a sack here and there, but he was pretty good at getting rid of the ball. His management, though, was exactly what we saw, really, especially week 1, week 2, and we need to be able to see that. If we continue to see that, man, he did. He reminded me of that, of exactly who you said. He reminded me of New Orleans. He reminded me of Drew Brees, not in his heyday. Drew Brees is an all-time great, but Drew Brees, when he was managing the game, his longest pass was out to Tim Patrick. That was like a 40, 50-yard pass that he ended up bombing out to Tim Patrick on a dime. And a lot of people said, oh, Teddy Bridgewater, he can't throw deep. He doesn't have an arm. He has the capability. He just needs those guys out there performing like they did across the front line as wide receivers. And I'll give this up to Matt, because Matt's been banging on this for a while. We can't just see Teddy throw outside the numbers. We can't just see him, hit everything on the outside. There was more than enough times, whether it be Judy or Tim Patrick, over the middle, turning it upfield, making yards. It was a completely different game plan that we saw, and one that Matt called out. So once again, coaches are listening.
Hey, they might be, man. They may very well be listening. I've sent my application in a couple of times. I haven't gotten any response. Maybe
this is a 2 tight end set. If you want to, no, I'm just kidding.
That is exactly what we saw today. That we saw 2 tight end sets be utilized often today. There was times where Alberto and Salbert were on the field, and it was effective. It was not only effective in opening up the run lanes and giving Javonte Williams one additional blocker, giving Melvin Gordon that extra blocker, but it was chipping the edges, giving Teddy that little bit of extra time. We've seen a couple plays where the play action got blown up, and that's bound to happen. But it was effective. It was effective like it was in New Orleans. I
wouldn't expect it, but we ran off that right side so great today, guys.
Oh, beautifully. So and that's the weaker side, to be honest.
The game plan you would expect, Garrett Bowles out, we need to go someplace else. We ran to the right side with confidence and did damage.
And even in the face of injuries, they did not doubt that right side, and they continued to just batter the right side of the Cowboys defense. Even with Cam Fleming, even with Quinn Meinerz, the gut in there, it was dominating on that right side today. The other thing that, I want to highlight, you just said it. Teddy Bridgewater is capable of throwing the ball the 40 to 50 yards. But the issue we were seeing I would say in all of our losses, our 4 losses, what we've seen was Teddy Bridgewater throwing the ball nearly 40 times, and a majority of those passes being out there. He's already limited in physical ability. He's been banged up. He's got a concussion, and we were continuously pounding. Let's throw outside the numbers with a quarterback who doesn't have those physical attributes. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Justin Herbert. He's not Joe Burrow. But what he can do is you calculate it, you time it right, and then you get the big 40-yard plays. He's put a couple beautiful passes. I mean, let's go all the way back to the preseason, Minnesota. Not Minnesota, the game after. We've seen him have 2-3 beautiful passes. He's capable of it, but we can't see it 10 times a game. He doesn't have. That's not the quarterback he is. And Pat Shurmur learned from that today. Fingers crossed, guys. We need to see Pat Shurmur stick to this. That's what it is.
And what you saw is you saw Teddy Bridgewater get into a rhythm. That first series, I said, oh boy, here we go. That first pass attempt he had held the ball way too long. Even the announcer said, he has to get his ball out of his hand. He went through his first, his second, his third read, and the next thing he's getting sacked. I mean, but once Teddy got into a groove, and got comfortable, it really translated to his game. And I think that running game and getting that going and just getting that flow going and these long drives, where we're not rushing and Teddy's not forced to make these huge plays to get us down the field. I mean, that's how Teddy needs to be going forward.
But on the flip side of that, the thing that I was amazed at is the amount of times that we did have a long yardage situation, and all of a sudden you see Tim Patrick come up with a catch or Jerry Jeudy come up with a catch. We had 7 different receivers with catches today, and none of them had a catch for under 6 yards. Every single one of those catches were thrown at least 6 yards. I guess I see it is we were throwing a little bit more intermediate on this, But even when we came up just a little shy of the sticks and we saw guys going down left and right, not this week. They turned it upfield. They broke an additional tackle and they got the first down. It was just a wonderful thing to see.
Right. It was. I mean, and we didn't see the guys doing like Noah Fant, catches the ball 3 yards short of the stick, and doesn't turn it up and try to get those extra yards and pick up the first down. I mean, these guys, something happened this week, and I don't know if it was the Vaughn trade or what. And I want to sort of ask a controversial question to both of you.
Bring it.
I like it.
All right. And somebody in our Rocky Mountain Sports Report group brought this up, and I sort of asked him if he was out of his mind. One, he said this Denver defense played better without Von Miller last week. And then they come out today, and they just play out of their mind. I mean, the defense was just flying everywhere. And then he said, maybe Von's a locker room distraction. Do you guys think maybe Von was part of the problem here?
I think it's possible. I don't mean to cut you off, Keith, but I'm going to dive into it quick. I think it's possible. I really do. I mean, I don't think Von's the type of player that's going to go out there and be like, he's not OBJ in it. He's not Emmanuel Sanders in it. He's not being the diva of it. But we've talked about it for several consecutive seasons. It just seems like Von is somewhat stagnated. It's just been not the same Von, not a dominant record. And you got to look at it, through Von's perspective. 2015 was great. After Peyton Manning left, he's still in his prime, and we sat here for 5 consecutive seasons not addressing the quarterback position, not putting ourselves in playoff contention. His frustration and potential lack of effort could have just stemmed from frustration. It doesn't necessarily mean by being a distraction, by being the diva, but people can feel that vibe you're giving off. It could be that silent distraction, because I think he's a great teammate, and I don't think he had it like that, but I definitely think it contributed.
And I don't want anybody to take this as a bash against Von Miller, because Von Miller did so much for this organization, and I love Von Miller. But there comes a time, Keith, where players become distractions. Maybe if they're not happy with the way things are going. I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
I can see a little bit of what you're talking about, maybe from a little bit different perspective or a different angle. Though for me, he's the assumed captain. He's the assumed leader on this team. Everyone has to defer to Von Miller, especially on the defensive side of the ball. He's the Super Bowl winner. He's the All-Pro. He's the MVP at one point, but perennial Pro Bowler as well. So you have all this assumed leadership in Von Miller, and was he really all that much of a leader for his Denver Broncos team? Was he that guy that everyone felt like, hey, this is the guy that's going to pull us through. He's the guy who's got my back. He's the guy who's maybe he just wasn't that guy as a leader. And especially as Matt pointed out, after, 5 years of kind of having to murk through it and hoping that something's going to come about, and nothing ever comes about. And now you're, going in there and not budging on a contract, and for a contract year this last year, maybe there's a little bit more to it than we ever saw or ever expected.
Well, yeah, and you hear the whole Halloween story and all that thing, and tension in the locker room over the financial aspects of that. It's like, maybe there was a little bit more to this story than what we know. So.
And maybe it just creeped in this season, really. You know what I mean? Like you said, it was a growing thing, but then things like this with the Halloween party per se, and maybe some financial and, expecting people to chip in when they just thought they were invited to a party. And, there's all that came out. We may never know exactly what the truth of all that is, but if that does have it, all those things building, Von for years, that expected leadership position, then all of a sudden this happens. Yeah, it does feel good to get someone like that who's been treated as maybe the golden child out of the locker room, and you're playing free and easy now.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, let's look at the other side of it, though. I mean, maybe there's all those possibilities of Von maybe could have been taking plays off, this or that. The locker room. I mean, the locker room was already going to be somewhat disheveled. It's been a consistent thing for 5 consecutive seasons. Offense pointing the finger at defense, defense pointing the finger at offense. We've seen that. They were on a 4 consecutive losing streak. The Vaughn trade was just kind of like the final, like, okay, we're turning a new leaf. They went out last week. Maybe they weren't feeling the same confidence that they were, but they were going to come out and they were going to just do their best. They came out. The defense played great. Jonathan Cooper looked good. Malik Reed looked fantastic last week. They came in and then they dominated. We won. They just looked at it as we just won a game without Von Miller. Everybody said Von's the reason this team is relevant, and Von's the reason why this defense is great as it is. We just came in. We played an ugly game, but we were physical and we won. That confidence may be enough to carry over into this. We've seen it carry over to Dallas. How is this defense? How are these young edges, this young defensive core that's been somewhat makeshift? Stephen Weatherly, we talked about it earlier, acquired just before the trade deadline. Kenny Young acquired just before the trade deadline. These guys are here with less than 2 weeks of practice, and they're coming in. They're playing hard. They're wanting to make a name for themselves. Baron Browning hadn't started a game all season. Had barely been able to play. He's been battling injuries leading up to Washington. He comes in and plays fantastic. Then we got Shelby Harris, who is kind of like the elder of our defense. And man, he's got that defensive line looking great. Look at all the interior pressure we came today. Not only was it coming from guys like Dre Jones, it was coming from Shelby Harris. It was coming from I'm drawing a blank on his name now. I was all into it. Several guys that people don't even know their names. They know names. I mean, Shamar Stephen, nobody knows his name. You have to look at the roster. Like, who the heck is that? Who's number 90 out there? Who's number 67 at times? We didn't even have Mike Purcell out there. And these guys are just rallying. They feel the energy. And it could just be like, hey, we don't have Vaughn, and we won. We came out the best offense, this highlighting offense. We came in and we kept one of the best rushing duos under 100 yards. We came in and we smacked Dak Prescott around for three and a half quarters. I don't know. Maybe this is that elite defense we've been waiting for. We talked about that $70 million secondary, and they weren't the biggest factor in today's game, but the unknowns, the underdogs, rose up today, and they rose up last week. I don't know, man.
Yeah, and I think sometimes when you have someone of Von's stature on a football team, that sort of makes guys a little tense, And with Von out of the picture, these guys, they can play a little more freely. They can, be a little looser, and they go out there. I mean, Cooper just played out of his mind today.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're looking at an MVP for me on the defense, it's either Cooper or it's Caden Stearns. I mean, those guys were just out of their mind today. And I think, maybe Von did just put a little bit of pressure on these guys. And now that he's out of the picture, it's a little more free Willy out there, or free Nelly.
It very well could be. I want to give one quick thought, and then I have one question before we wrap up, because we're at a new time slot of 45 minutes. So
all right,
try to be better at it. So I want to definitely just say today was the first time where it seemed like Vic Fangio was energized, like he was having fun out there. I would stand up and I would show you the Vic Fangio pose, but I don't think I have enough space out here. Usually it's him, playbook tucked in his hoodie pocket, hurled over, bent over, looking at the ground, and his hands on his knees, looking in total despair. We didn't see that today. I mean, you did your best fist pump or whatever you want to call it. That was the most energy we've seen from Vic Fangio in 3 years. It looked like he was having fun. Maybe Vaughn was more of a distraction than it. Maybe that is it. This is his 2 weeks without Vaughn, and maybe there was a little bit of a tension between Vic Fangio and Von Miller. What did Vic do the very first week he was here? He called out Vaughn, and maybe that just started the relationship off on a bad foot, and it just never was able to heal. But this is a new team.
I'm going to go back to one of the things that we talked about, and we say that all the coaches are listening in. The one thing that I saw that was hugely different in this defense, we saw the stunting that we've been talking about. I saw that defensive end roll to the inside, coming straight up the middle, having to try to get blocked. We saw it, and this is a key point. When you have a guy like Fuller or Darby or somebody that you feel, Cooper, Stearns even, that you feel, maybe they're not the best in coverage. What's the best thing to do? Use those guys on the blitz. Just let them tear off the corner, tear it in from the safety position. Go ahead and create some pressure on Dak Prescott, which we did all day long. It might not have showed up on the big old sack stat sheet, but dang, we had pressure on him all day long. And it was utilizing saying, you know what, this is a weakness. Go ahead and let's utilize him to the best ability. And we were blitzing and stunting. And I think that's what, when you see Vic Fangio celebrating on the sideline, they came up with a game plan and they executed the game plan. The game plan worked, and he was loving every minute of it.
Absolutely. All right. Final question, final thought of the day. Quick, simple, concise answers. We've seen the Raiders lose to the Giants today. We've seen Kansas City barely be able to get over a beaten, I mean, I didn't say necessarily beaten down, but a broken Packers team. They're missing their guy in A-Rod. And we seen the Chargers barely eke out a win against the Philadelphia Eagles. Nothing to discredit them because, they're a hit or miss team.
Yep. Yeah, don't do it. I mean, that's who we got next week. So Denver better not sleep on them.
They're hot and cold. Some weeks they look great. Some weeks they don't. They're kind of like the Broncos of the East. Let's be honest. It's kind of what they are. That's just what it is. Yep. But the way that this division continues to struggle, does it seem like the Broncos may be the team that's getting hot when they need to get hot, while Kansas City, like I said, struggling? Raiders, all this adversity, they couldn't overcome it today. Chargers, I mean, let's be real. The Chargers are the Chargers. It's a roller coaster. Keith's got it perfect. Let's be real. Is this the Broncos' time to capitalize, and can they do it now after seeing the performance that we've seen today? Let's go with you first, Keith.
Well, if you want me first, I'll make it short and sweet, give Dave a little bit of time. But for me, you don't take a win against a team like Dallas and try to not make that not let that propel you forward, right? It's if you're going to take a win, don't take it against a Washington team where you barely win. Take it against a team like Dallas and run with that. And absolutely, this could be an absolutely game-changing game for the division in the AFC West.
All right, let's go, Dave. Quick, you get the spotlight.
All right, and I'm going to agree with Keith. I mean, this has to be the game that propels this team forward for the rest of the season. We have the talent. I mean, we've always said this. We've been saying this since the beginning of the season. This team has the talent. We dealt with coaching issues. We've dealt with poor execution, and this team just went out today and put everything together and played an almost near perfect football game. And if we can go out and play like this, we can play with almost anybody in the NFL. And I think the way this division is, we can be in that battle to win this division.
Absolutely. And my final thought is I'm going to agree with you guys. I think this division was in reach. I think wild card is within reach. As long as they continue to build on what we've seen today, I think the Broncos have a good shot against the majority of the AFC West teams. We've seen them play the AFC's West in Baltimore and still remain somewhat competitive. This team isn't as bad as what everybody thinks it is. George Payton said it best. It feels like we're 2-4 and we're not 4-4, or 2-6 and not 4-4. That's what it is. This team is here. Let's see if they can build on it. With that being said, it was a great Broncos win. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. I want to thank our sponsor, Willow Seasonings and Blends, for putting a little spice in your life. I also want to highlight where you can find us. You can find me at Stefero NFL on Twitter. You can find Dave at David Slade, RMSR, Keith on Facebook. I also want to highlight where you can find our main pages on Facebook. We got at Rocky Mountain Sports Report. We got a group page. We got a group page and a Facebook page. Like both. That's where you get all of our great content. We also got a YouTube. Go put it in the search bar. Rocky Mountain Sports Report. Don't forget to like and subscribe there so you get all the notifications. And if you want to check us out on Instagram or Twitter, the Twitter handle's the same, at Rocky Mountain SR. That's where we put all our great content. It was a blast, talking football with you guys. It was a great football win. It was a great Broncos win. And I'll end it like this. As in a great owner once said, he may be a Raiders fan, but all the Broncos need to do is just win, baby. And that's how we'll close it out. See you guys next time.
Everybody know I'm gonna kill it.